we were talking about ratings.
Yes, absolutely. Ratings are strong here still for WCW, just not as good as WWE. We had 8,550 fans in Biloxi. Now that sounds like a heck of a house until you realize that less than 2,900 of them were paying fans. So the gate is only $63,000. Man, you want to talk about the worm turning. I mean, this is a company that was routinely selling out domes for weekly television. And I mean, they had 40,000 people in domes on multiple occasions, paid fans. And now, less than 2 years later, we've got less than 2,900. It's hard to wrap your head around how quickly it turned, right?
When I saw the stats, I just wondered how the heck get 4 or 5,000 freebies out.
I was wondering the same thing. I don't understand how it's even possible.
I don't. I just wonder if it's accurate. Lord knows, there's never been anything inaccurate in the world of social media.
Well, listen, I know that you say that from the standpoint of someone who grew up in the business that was being operated on a P&L. That's not what this is. This is a television company, so they may have made the decision, hey, we want it to look good on TV. We don't give a rip how much money we make on the ticket sales. We're trying to sell television ads. Either way, though, the result is a pretty memorable moment on the show. David Flair and Vince Russo are going to go to Ric Flair's house and jump up and down on his bed, and drive across the lawn and steal some of his robes. And eventually Rick comes out and challenges David to a match. And you come out instead and hit him with a guitar and put him in the figure 4 to set up a match later on that night. Along the same lines, we would see Kevin Nash almost kill Mike Awesome with a power bomb off the stage through a table. Without DDP, something tough may have happened there.
Jesus.
But finally, we get you and the Nature Boy in the main event. And Flair is working with just one arm. He needs shoulder surgery that might happen later in the month, but he's working in street clothes. And it's written here in the Observer, they wanted him to wrestle in trunks since he was winning the world title, but it was one of those communication breakdowns. And since they never told him, he didn't bring any trunks, but he still had the only good match and great interview on the show and the 2 highest rated segments. While half the young guys who can't draw ratings, have good matches, or even dress well think he is the one who's killing the ratings. So, of course, Meltzer is giving a big high five to Ric Flair. We know that Ric's super talented. He did have a great promo. He did have some of the highest rated segments. You did get a chance to wrestle him. But I'm sure even you had to be a little disappointed. Hey, I get to wrestle Ric Flair for the world title. That's cool. But in street clothes, how disappointed were you?
Oh, God. That we could probably come up, and certainly on My World or What Happened When or 83 Weeks or any of your pods that kind of dive into the WCW history. But to go back in time, Conrad, had we had a camera because everything was up in the air, this was, I'm sure Russo and others, and because I think there was a creative team by this time and they had talked about it and all this. But when they came to me and said, hey, we're going to switch the title, right? Okay. Now, do realize that I just won it and we're already going to flip it. Where are we going with this? And it was said, oh, I think it was like, you're probably going to win it back or you are going to win it back. And I'm thinking, why are we switching it? What is the upside here? What are we doing here? So to kind of have that conversation, okay, look, I'm not the boss here. I'll go out. Rick's super over. I'll just bounce around for him and we'll have a hell of a match. And even Meltzer, he didn't want to give me any credit. but yeah, Rick's talented, but to work in dress shoes over 1 minute is an impressive feat. But when I found out, which was after the conversation switching the title, it was just like, oh my God, like how? And I get it. I mean, but whatever the communication or whatever it may be.
Well, listen, I'm not trying to wag my finger at Rick. Of course, everybody knows he was my favorite wrestler as a kid, but it's still just crazy to me to think that an old veteran The old veteran. He's at the building without his tights. And
The old
that makes me think he was in a pissing contest with WCW still. He's not super thrilled maybe that
no,
Bischoff's back, because why would you show up to the building without gear no matter what you're doing?
well, and so here was kind of the yin and the yang of it. That Rick, do you really want to win the title in street clothes?
Right. Of course
Like,
not.
so maybe he wasn't expecting it. That's why I kind of always go back and defer to it that, okay, if he's playing this game of chess, wow, he just did a little move and he's kind of getting them, I don't say into checkmate, but okay, they catered to something here or he pushed some button here. But then all of a sudden, why don't you just say, oh, hey guys, I forgot. Uh, You know what? They dealt the dash my tights. I do have them here. I mean, but it wasn't, I thought it just kind of made all of us look like, yeah, it was spontaneous, and we're going to get into the announcers knowing, not knowing, and all that kind of stuff. But I'll say this as the takeaway: if you would have told me in 1986 when I broke in that I'm going to work with Ric Flair in a world title match, main event of Nitro, and we're going to uh, diplomatically say tear the house down because the people were really into it, they loved it. I'd have said okay, and they would have said, and he's going to be in street clothes. I would have said.
Yeah, you got
It,
8,000 fans in Mississippi. Of course they want to see Jeff Jarrett and Ric Flair. Like, I totally get that. But it is weird to me. I mean, I don't think for a second that Rick knew ahead of time that he was winning the title that night. But it just felt like to me, I've always heard, and again, what the fuck do I know? I'm not a wrestler, but I've always heard, hey, you always have your gear. Always have
yeah,
your gear. And the idea that he's there made me think he had no confidence in WCW that that was going to change. And even if they wanted to wrestle, he's probably like, well, I don't really want to, so I'm not going to take my bag. Who cares? But the result is he winds up winning the freaking title in street clothes.
and he has the bad shoulder, which was legit.
Yes, he's going to have surgery in a couple of weeks. So it's logical that he would think, well, they're not going to put me in there then. Then
Yes,
they do. The whole thing. Let's
yeah.
take the belt off the guy who just won it. Why? So we put it on this other guy who's going to have surgery in 2 weeks. What?
Oh, but we'll flip it back before he has surgery. Okay.
Okay. Thunder the
I told-
next. By the way, as you said, the announcers were pensive. They didn't even want to jump on it. There was a big hesitation. When Flair pins you, they're not celebrating the big champ. They're waiting to see, like, is that a mistake or is that really the finish? The idea being, Russo, I guess, as the narrative goes, didn't want the announcers to be waiting and have planned, canned responses. He wanted a more authentic reaction. But I think they're thinking, wait, the guy in street clothes who's leaving in 2 weeks to have surgery just won? Like, are we sure? Oh, okay. That's what we're doing. We're going with it.